Have you ever heard a story so chilling that it makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world? Well, this might be one of those stories. Afam was a bright young boy, no older than 12, who lived with his aging father in a small, modest hut on the outskirts of Akuje. His mother had passed away when he was just a baby, and his father, though a kind man, was frail and weak. The burden of providing for them both fell on Afam, who dutifully sold bananas on the streets of the village. He would walk through the dusty roads, a basket of ripe bananas balanced on his head, smiling at everyone he met. The villagers loved him. He was polite, obedient, and always willing to help those in need. Afam never once complained about his daily routine. Every morning, his father would hand him a few naira to buy the bananas, and Afam would head out to sell them, hoping to return with enough money to buy medicine for his father. Despite the hardships they faced, Afam's heart remained light, his joy coming from the simple acts of kindness he received from the villagers in return for his bananas. One day, as Afam made his way through the village, he saw a familiar face, one Neka, a man known throughout Akuje as ruthless and cold-hearted. Waneka was a notorious figure in the village, feared for his cruel ways. He was the kind of man who would get out of his way to exploit others, especially those weaker than him. On this particular day, he approached Afam looking to buy some bananas. "How much for the bunch, Afam?" Waneka asked in a gruff voice. 500 naira, sir, Afam replied, smiling brightly. Waneka handed him a crumpled note, but as Afam reached to take the money, Waneka snatched it away. "I don't have change," he said with a grin, his eyes narrowing. Afam, confused, looked at Waneka. "But you promised to pay me for my bananas. Please, sir, my father needs this money." "I'm not paying you anything," Waneka sneered. "You should be grateful that I even bought your bananas." He turned to walk away, but Afam, desperate and frightened, grabbed hold of the tip of his shirt. "Please, sir," Afam pleaded, his voice shaky. "My father is sick. He needs the money to get better. Please don't take it away from us." But Waneka, cold and unmoved, shoved Afam hard. The boy stumbled backwards, and before he could regain his balance, his head slammed against a large rock by the roadside. Afam's body went limp. Waneka looked down at the boy, his heart racing for a moment, but then he scoffed. He couldn't afford to get caught. There was too much at stake. Quickly, he dragged Afam's lifeless body into the nearby bushes and buried him, burying not only the boy, but any trace of what had happened. He even placed the bananas around Afam's grave, making sure there was nothing left to hint at the tragedy. The village was in shock when they learned Afam had gone missing. His father, heartbroken, went from house to house, asking for help, but no one had seen the boy. The search party scoured the village, the woods, and every inch of land they could think of, but it was as if Afam had disappeared into thin air. His father, too weak to continue searching, fell ill with worry. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, but there was no sign of Afam. His father eventually died of a broken heart, unable to cope with the loss of his son. Years passed, and life in Akuje moved on. Though the memory of Afam lingered in the minds of the villagers, but the land where he had been buried remained untouched. That is, until one day a wealthy man from the city named Chijioke came to Akuje. Chijioke had made his fortune in the city and decided to retire in a quiet place, away from the hustle and bustle. He had heard of the village and its peaceful surroundings, and after some persuasion, he purchased the land near the village's edge. It was a bargain, the price low compared to the value he expected from such a prime location. The villagers didn't know much about Chijioke, except that he seemed kind and well-intentioned. He had a wife, Nkechi, and two children, Emeka, his young son, and Ebere, his young daughter. They were looking for a fresh start, and Chijioke was determined to build this dream home on the land he had bought. Construction began quickly, and before long, a beautiful large house house rose on the site where the old overgrown land once lay. The family moved in, eager to settle into their new life. The house was everything they had hoped for: spacious, beautiful, and full of promise. But from the very beginning, something felt off. At night, Emeka would hear strange sounds like soft footsteps or whispers in the walls. Ebere too would speak of shadowy figures she saw in the corners of her room, but the family dismissed these oddities as usual noises of an old house settling. They tried to ignore the unease that began to creep over them. It wasn't long before things took a darker turn. One evening, after returning from a trip into the village, Chijioke and Nkechi entered their home to find the air thick with a strange chill. The lights flickered and then went out completely. Emeka and Ebere were huddled together in the living room, eyes wide with fear. The house, once warm and inviting, now felt cold and lifeless. "What's happening?" Nkechi whispered, a chill running down her spine. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. A door slammed shut, followed by the unmistakable sound of something or someone dragging across the floor. Chijioke, with his heart pounding, ran up the stairs, his mind racing with all the stories he had heard about haunted houses. He reached the hallway and froze in his tracks. Standing in front of him, bathed in the dim light of the hallway, was a boy with a tray of bananas balanced on his head. A boy he had never seen before, but whose eyes had a familiar sadness. The boy looked at him with hollow eyes, his clothes torn and dirty, and he spoke in a voice that chilled Chijioke to the bone. "Do you want to buy bananas?" the boy asked softly. Before Chijioke could react, the boy vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the lingering echo of his voice. Nkechi woke up with a startle, gasping for air. Her heart raced in her chest as she looked around the dimly lit room. She was in her own bed, her husband Chijioke lying beside her, undisturbed by the nightmare she had just experienced. She sat up, her mind racing. Had it all been a dream? She glanced at the clock. It was still the dead of the night. She rubbed her face, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling that gripped her. It was just a dream, she tried to convince herself. The next morning, as the family gathered for breakfast, there was an eerie calm in the house. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the walls, but it felt colder than it should have. Emeka and Ebere sat at the table, quietly eating, their eyes downcast. Chijioke noticed immediately. The children were unusually silent. Emeka, normally full of energy, barely touched his food. Ebere was absent-mindedly playing with her food, with her small hands moving the banana slices around on her plate. Emeka, "Ebere, what is going on? Why so quiet today?" Nkechi asked, her voice laced with concern. But neither child responded. Instead, Ebere suddenly spoke, her voice soft but clear. "Mama, do you want to buy bananas?" Nkechi froze. It was the strangest thing. Ebere had been playing with her food, but now she was looking past her mother as if seeing something or someone Nkechi couldn't see. "Who are you talking to?" Ebere asked. Chijioke asked, his voice rising with confusion. The girl blinked as if coming out of a trance and then smiled innocently. "Oh, I was just playing with my friend." "Friend?" Nkechi asked, a chill running down her spine. "What friend, Ebere?" But the little girl didn't respond. She simply went back to poking at her food, as if nothing strange had happened. Later that evening, after the children had gone to bed, Nkechi couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the dream she had the night before. In the dream, the boy was crying uncontrollably. He reached out to her, his tiny hands gasping for air. "I'm lost," he wailed. "I'm lost, and I need to go back to my father." She sat up in bed, sweating, her heart pounding. Her breath was shallow. She glanced at Chijioke, who was snoring beside her, oblivious to the turmoil swelling in her mind. Nkechi, he murmured, half awake. She turned to him, her voice trembling. Chijioke, I don't know what's happening. I think there's something wrong with the house. Chijioke opened his eyes slowly. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Nkechi, calm down. It's just a dream. You've been stressed out with the move and everything. I'm sure it's nothing. It's all in your mind. No, Chijioke, it's not just a dream. We need to find out what's happening in this house. We can't ignore it any longer. But Chijioke, still half asleep, shook his head, dismissing her concerns. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. It's been a long day. You are probably just imagining things. Go back to sleep, okay? Nkechi wanted to argue, to press him further, but his dismissive tone stopped her. She knew her husband well. He was practical, grounded, and didn't believe in things he couldn't see or explain. Still, the fear gnawed at her. She couldn't ignore the growing sense that something was terribly wrong. The days that followed only deepened the strange atmosphere in the house. Ebere and Emeka's behavior grew more unsettling. They would often play together, but their conversations were odd and disconnected, as though they were speaking to someone invincible. One afternoon, Nkechi overheard Emeka talking to his sister in the living room. You will never find the bananas, Emeka. They are gone. Ebere said with a sad look in her eyes. But I need them. I have to take them to my father, Emeka replied, with his voice urgent. Nkechi rushed into the sitting room, her heart hammering in her chest. What are you two talking about? And who are you talking to? Ebere just looked up at her with wide eyes, as if startled. I was talking to the man who buys bananas, she said innocently. He said he's looking for his father. Nkechi could hardly breathe. What was going on? Was the boy's spirit not talking through her children? She couldn't stand it any longer. She needed answers. The next morning, after the unsettling conversation with her children, Nkechi felt more desperate than ever. She had tried to brush off the strange occurrences, but the dreams and her children's odd behavior were too much to ignore. She needed answers, something to explain why her family was being plagued by an unseen force. That morning, while walking to the market in Akuje town to buy some fresh vegetables, Nkechi bumped into Ada. Ada was a warm-hearted woman, always ready with a story, a smile, or a word of encouragement. She and Nkechi had become good friends in the weeks since they moved to Akuje. Ada, with her sharp ears for gossip and her kind spirit, had become a source of comfort for Nkechi. They would often meet at the market or over tea, sharing stories about the village and gossiping about the latest happenings in town. Ah, Nkechi, good morning. How are you today? Ada greeted her with a warm hug. Nkechi smiled weakly. Morning, Ada. I'm managing, but I've got a lot on my mind, she said, her voice tinged with frustration. Ada studied her face, noticing the weariness in her friend's eyes. What is it, my dear? You look like you've seen a ghost. Nkechi chuckled nervously. It's funny you say that, Ada. Maybe I have. Ada raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Go on, tell me, what is wrong? As they walked together through the bustling market, Nkechi told Ada everything. The strange dreams she had been having, the odd behavior of her children, the feelings of coldness in the house, and the strange connection to bananas. Ada listened carefully, her expression thoughtful but kind. I know it sounds crazy, Nkechi said, feeling embarrassed, but I can't shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong in our house. I don't know what to do. My husband doesn't believe me, and the children, they keep acting strange, like they are being influenced by something. I can't ignore it anymore. Ada nodded, understanding the depth of her friend's worry. I'll tell you what, Nkechi, she said, taking her hand gently. Don't worry, I know some things about this town. Things others might not know. I'll do some asking around, and I promise I'll find out what's going on. You just need to stay strong for now. Nkechi looked at Ada, grateful but still uncertain. You really think you can help? It's not just my imagination. Ada smiled, her eyes kind and sincere. No, my friend, I don't think it's your imagination. After their conversation, Ada and Nkechi parted ways with heavy hearts. Ada's curiosity had been piqued, and her protective instinct kicked in. She couldn't let her new friend suffer in silence, especially not when something so sinister seemed to be happening in her home. Ada promised to do everything she could to find answers, no matter where they led. The following afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Ada made her way to the village square. She had decided to visit one of the elders, a wise and elderly man named Papa Kamsu. He had been a close friend to her late husband, and he was well known for his knowledge of the village's history. If anyone knew what the secrets or the secrets buried in the land of Akuje town, it would be him. Ada approached the elder's small, humble hut, where she could hear the faint sound of birds chirping in the trees. The elder's home was surrounded by lush green vegetation, and it looked peaceful. She knocked gently on the door. Papa Kamso, are you home? She called out, her voice respectful. A few moments later, the door creaked open, and the elderly man appeared, leaning on his walking stick. His face was lined with age, and his eyes were soft but sharp, like a man who had seen much in his lifetime. Ah, Ada, he greeted her warmly. I was just thinking about you. Come in. What brings you here today? Ada stepped into the small, dimly lit hut, and they exchanged pleasantries. Before Ada got to the point, she sat down across the elder, her expression serious. Papa Kamsu, she began, I need to talk to you about something that has been bothering my friend, Nkechi. She and her family recently moved into a house built on a land near the village. And well, there have been strange occurrences in the house. Her children has been acting strangely, and she has been having unsettling dreams. The thing is, she claims to see the ghost of a boy, and in the dream, the boy keeps asking if anyone has seen his father or if they would love to buy bananas. And he also says he is lost. The elder's face immediately shifted, his expression turning seriously. He sat down slowly as if the weight of Ada's words had struck a nerve. I see, Papa Kamso said, his voice soft but steady. I knew this day would come, but I never thought it would be your friend Ada. Ada was taken aback by his response. What do you mean? What is it that you know about this boy? And who is he? The elder let out a deep sigh. There was a boy. His name was Afam. He was a sweet child, always polite and willing to help. He lived with his father, an elderly man who was very weak and unable to walk. Afam, despite his young age, sold bananas to make a living for himself and his father. The villagers loved him. His bananas were always fresh, and he had a smile for everyone. But one day, he disappeared. Ada leaned forward, eager to hear more. What happened to him? The elder shook his head slowly, as if the memory pained him. Afam went missing, just like that. One moment he was selling his bananas, and the next he was gone. His father waited for him, called out for him. The villagers even searched for days, scouring every corner of the village, but there was no sign of him. No trace, no footprints, nothing. The boy had simply vanished into thin air. But what happened to him? Was he kidnapped? Did someone hurt him? Ada asked. Papa Chijioke's eyes grew distant, as if he were reliving the pain of those years. There were rumors, Ada. Some said the boy had been taken by some evil spirit, while some said they had seen him with one neka. But much evidence wasn't carried out on the matter. Ada's heart sank. The pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was terrifying. But what about his father? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The elder's face darkened. His father. He never stopped searching for his son. He grew weak from the constant worry, the sleepless nights. His heart couldn't take the pain. He died not long after Afam's disappearance. There was a long silence between them. Ada could feel the weight of the past hanging heavy in the air. the pain of a lost child, the heartbreak of a father's love, and the dark mystery of Afam's fate. It was all starting to make sense. Is it possible, Ada's voice trembled slightly, that Afam's spirit never found peace? That he's haunting the house now looking for his father? Papa Kamso nodded gravely. Yes, Ada. His spirit never found rest, and now it seems his soul is still lost. His cries for help is just a sign that his soul is not at rest. Ada shuddered at the thought. What can we do, Papa Kamso? Is there a way we can help him find peace? The elder sighed deeply again, his shoulders slumping with the weight of the past. The only way to put Afam's spirit to rest is to find his body, but it won't be easy. After the meeting with Papa Kamso, Ada could feel the weight of the situation settling heavy on her. She knew that while she understood the gravity of what was happening, her dear friend Nkechi's husband, Chijioke, would likely dismiss it as mere superstition. He had always been a practical man, grounded in logic. It was going to take more than just her word for him to believe the stories of a ghostly boy, asking about bananas and crying for his lost father. Ada had a plan. She decided to ask Papa Kamso to accompany her to Nkechi's house. She knew that if the elder spoke directly to Chijioke, he might finally take the matter seriously. After all, Papa Kamso was a respected figure in the village, known for his wisdom and knowledge of the spiritual world. His presence alone would command attention. Afam's story is far from over. Join us for part 2 to uncover the shocking truth. Don't miss out. Turn on your notification bell, subscribe, like, and comment below to stay connected. See you for part 2.